I'd say that my time period was also very large. I'd say I had say at least 300 days for my preparation. I utilized my time, and I'll be honest, I gave around 80 to 90 mocks at least. If I can count on my hand, I'd say it was at least 80 to 90 mocks, and I'd contend that it was even more. So I had a lot of time. I had the benefit of a lot of time. But at this point, if you have 2 months, I'd say that you focus on giving one mock each day, and that mock and for example, right now, I think one of the best strategies would be just to solve, for example, for ALIT at least, will be just to solve every past year paper each day at this point of time, that is to say right now or whenever you are about to start. So there are about 10 or 12 or whatever number of papers ALIT has, or SLAT for that matter has. You do one paper every day right now, and when the exam is about to come, you do those papers again. So what this does is set number one a comparative, a standard for how much you have improved. Number two, makes you more familiar with the questions. So every time you approach the test, you are extremely confident. Because and this and all of these things which usually get ignored are extremely important, are because you might be the best prepared person on the table on the day of the exam. But if, for example, you do not have the requisite confidence, you will just succumb to pressure. You will see your heart is racing, you will be palpitating, you will be sweating all over. But if you're simply cool because you're confidence, because you're confident, and confidence at the end of the day comes with the amount of knowledge you have, and the level of preparation you have. So if you're familiarized yourself with the process, if you're able to sit down for 2 hours focusing on nothing else but the paper, and if you do it twice for that matter, I think there is nothing that would actually stop you from cracking this exam, which I think literally everybody has the capability of cracking. I'd say mocks, when it comes to mocks, it's extremely important to not get stuck in say certain questions. For example, I'd say I'd completely advise skipping the GK section and not viewing the GK section from the point of view of, obviously, because 2019's current affairs wouldn't be asked in 2020, or 2018 for that matter. And I'd say that you focus on the more objective parts which do not change, that is to say maths, logical reasoning, English, all of and legal reasoning, all of these sections. And what you do is, mock analysis is absolutely simple. You take your paper, after you solved it, you take a break, you solve a 2 hour paper, you take a 1 or 2 hour break, you do whatever you want in that period and just chill out. Then you come back, you sit down with focus in concentration, and what you do is you simply look at the questions you got wrong. Now, when you see that you have a certain type of question that's wrong, for example, in the critical reasoning section, if what you often solve incorrectly is, for example, CR questions that deal with assumptions. So what I'd actually suggest is, you take the paper, you sit down with it after taking a good break, and then you look at the paper, you see your errors, and you be absolutely harsh in criticizing yourself, because you are the only person who's going to be completely honest with you. Nobody else would be. And if you lie to yourself here, when you're only alone with yourself and you're with the paper, if you lie right now, it might be a short-term reassurance, but it will have a huge cost in the actual paper. So you be absolutely critical of yourself. You see the kinds of questions that you're, or the sections that you solve incorrectly, the kinds of questions you solve incorrectly. You take the topic in general and you revise and solve other types of questions in that topic. For example, if you get maths and logic incorrect very frequently, what you can do is, that if there is a specific topic, you can take some book or you can take some side lesson, and just go through it or solve very specific kinds of questions. But for example, if what you solve incorrectly is the whole section in general and you get extremely low marks, what you can do is you can take another set of relevant papers and solve them. So for example, what I used to do, at least that's relevant for ALET and the other exams except CLAT. What I used to do was that I did not solve a lot of in my starting days. I did not used to solve a lot of logical reasoning, that is to say, analytical reasoning and math sections correctly. What I used to do was I used to take the SST banking papers, which were extremely also elementary in nature. I'd say after you have a fair share of practice. So I used to take those papers and I used to solve them in a given frame of time, and then I used to revisit those questions. I used to analyze those papers also. So for example, a great tip, I'd say a personal tip, would be to solve SSC banking papers for maths and logical reasoning. They go a long way. For critical reasoning, I'd say there are online resources for the GMAT and the CAT. Now the GMAT and the CAT have a good, I'd say have a good standard of questions, and I'd not say get into those questions, say, or try to solve them, and if you don't solve them you get disheartened. No, what I'd say is you get the concept behind those questions, so try to attempt those questions and try to see the reasoning behind those questions. Now what that will do is that will not give you a confidence boost, or give you, say, a lack of confidence because you aren't or are able to solve those questions. What that will do is, if there are proper explanations for those answers for GMAT questions and CAT questions, what that will do is that will essentially prepare you for understanding the basic reasoning and the concept that goes behind critical reasoning questions. And I'd say that is what analysis is absolutely about. Analysis is about concept. And analysis, I'd say, is not relevant to the general knowledge section, because the general knowledge section is completely arbitrary, completely up to what questions the examiner will ask out of a pool of 1 lakh bits of information. And that is why I'd highly say do not analyze your general knowledge section too much, but analyze the other four very thoroughly, grasp the concepts of the other four very thoroughly, and see where you're lacking. And if you follow this approach, I think, and you revise your GK regularly, I think there is nothing that's stopping you from rectifying your errors at any point.